All right, got division round. Uh, Texans versus the Patriots. Looking for subscribers, click on the lower right. Let's go ahead and get into this. So, New England is favored by 3. And this is an interesting game. Uh, what I'm going to do is I'm going to recommend taking Houston, the underdog, if you can get it. That's what it's showing. -3 is what I'm seeing at DraftKings, I believe. And then -170. So I would take Houston both in the spread and the money line with EVs of 27.5 and 23.42. Uh, that's that's what the model with this data is. Again, there's definitely we'll talk through some of the injuries and such. So the model gives a slight advantage to Houston. The number one indicator here is the correlated point spread of zero point 0.1, so a very slight advantage to them winning. The number two indicator is this one right here. When I do a long-term look back, this value right here tends to be more conservative, and that's in alignment. And then when I look over here, my third indicator is the raw scores, 21-21. So what that's telling me is it's going to be a close game. Uh, and it's probably, I mean, we see 20 and 20, 21-21. These are both young teams, young quarterbacks, big situation. And when I watched CJ Stroud and the Texans this last game, it looks like they won big, but it was 7-6 at halftime. And quite frankly, I'm the Houston offense has some hitches to it, which are somewhat, when I look at this data right here, this a fairly poor rushing rank, and then a mediocre passing rank, but they have a dominant defense, is what we see. And then meanwhile, when you come over here to New England, Drake May is lighting it up this year. A lot of talk he's going to win the MVP. That would be awesome to see. I love to see up and coming young quarterbacks. Mediocre rushing game and a mediocre to good defense, and sometimes that gets you by. Is what we see. But at the end of the day, the way that these two match up just shows it's going to should be on the lower end of scoring. We do see Houston with some high values up here. I generally don't put a whole lot of value and say that that's definitely it's not going to be that, but it just shows that it could run away that way. Just because when you have a dominant defense, sometimes I can really stifle and just give the offense some running room. And as the saying goes, defense wins playoff games. Let's get into the raw numbers over here. The model has a solid advantage for New England when it comes to the rushing. Slight advantage over here with Houston on the passing. And again, you see this highlight over here. Drake May can definitely put up some numbers, but then again, you come over here with Houston with some high numbers on their rushing. That's what you're going to kind of see balance out. Come over here to the upper right, we see a lot more sacks over here, and that can so affect the game, particularly as those sacks can lead to turnovers. But overall, it looks to me as the model is saying that New England against that defense isn't going to have quite the outburst, but when they do, they can certainly get them. So the big question is going to be is how well is that defense going to be able to hold up? And there are some injuries that we see going on, but from what I can tell, the injuries we got 2 players, one on each side that are in concussion protocol. We've got the receiver Nico Collins, who let me just make sure I get those names right. We got Nico Collins and how it'll come to me, but yeah. So Nico Collins, wide receiver for Houston. I don't think that's going to hurt them as bad as Christian Gonzalez, cornerback, missing from New England. So when we look at this all the way across, we see a stronger available defense for Houston. And then when I look at the offense, definitely a stronger overall offense when I look across the board for New England. So that's always an interesting matchup because that's where the model I think comes into play. Is it's going to take the raw numbers, not just the rankings, not the relative rankings, the raw numbers, and take those and mathematically come up with a new calculation to say, well, what does that average look like? So to just simply say you've got a ranked number 4 defense going against a ranked number 11 offense or something along those lines, you actually have to look at the raw numbers. And there's a number of those raw numbers you have to look at. And that's what this model does to produce the scores, the outcomes, and the data that comes up with that, which I think is so instructive, as opposed to looking at more of the recent relative values that can go into that. But again, you got to adjust. You do have to accommodate for, what do you think, playing in New England? It's going to be cold and it's going to be loud, and both teams are young. It's definitely going to probably affect Houston, um, and negatively, and amp up New England in the process. It's going to be cold, but at the end of the day, I think the raw numbers still indicate that it's an even match. And when it comes to a low scoring even match, you can easily see a 21-20 game, in which case you kind of look at that and go, I'm going to take the under on that, especially with 3 points. If this were more of a 1.5 point spread, I would probably take uh, New England, or I would consider it at the very least. But at 3 points with New England, I'm not seeing the numbers that make me want to take that. So anyhow, love to hear from you, and enjoy the weekend.